Senator Schiff demanded to see the evidence as the hearing room of the Senate Intelligence Committee fell into a heavy silence. Tulsi Gabbard, a combat veteran and the president's nominee for Director of National Intelligence, sat motionless at the witness table with her files stacked neatly. Adam Schiff, the California senator who had previously led impeachment efforts, froze midway through shuffling his papers. He stammered an apology and asked again about the direct proof of Russian collusion she had mentioned in the past. This situation was rapidly deviating from the standard confirmation hearing script he had anticipated. Schiff was expected to interrogate her regarding her loyalty and her past judgment calls on foreign policy. Instead of defending herself against the usual political attacks, she effectively placed him on the witness stand. The senator attempted to regain control by claiming her questions were irrelevant to her nomination. Tulsi leaned toward the microphone with a military composure and insisted that his record was absolutely relevant. She stated that before he questioned her fitness to lead, they needed to discuss his history of deception. She produced a thick binder while her aide projected a series of documents onto the room's screens. "I have compiled your television interviews, sworn statements, and the classified transcripts from your own committee. The Mueller and Durham reports are here, and they all demonstrate that you have been untruthful." Schiff's face turned crimson as the audience of veterans and professionals began to whisper excitedly. The shutters of cameras clicked rapidly as the atmosphere in the room underwent a palpable shift. Tulsi declared she would review every leak and abuse of power he had committed. She argued that if he intended to judge her qualifications, the public deserved to know if he was qualified. The mood in the chamber transformed from a hearing into something the establishment had not foreseen. It was becoming a systematic dismantling of a career rather than a simple vetting process. The combat veteran who had left her party was about to expose the congressman's history. She prepared to reveal the falsehoods behind the Russia collusion narrative he had pushed for years. The fabricated FISA warrants he defended and the classified intelligence he leaked were about to be laid bare. She would address the laptop he dismissed as disinformation, despite knowing it was authentic. His own words regarding impeachment fabrications would be used to condemn his actions. Schiff sat in his expensive suit and realized too late that he had walked into a trap. Tulsi selected the first file and proposed they begin with the evidence regarding Russia he never actually possessed. The scene was the Senate Hart Building, specifically the hearing room for the Select Committee on Intelligence. This confirmation was for the position of Director of National Intelligence, overseeing all American spy agencies. Adam Schiff sat on the panel as a newly elected senator and former House Committee chairman. He was the face of the resistance who was expected to simply vote on her nomination. The room was filled beyond capacity with supporters in uniform and curious media representatives. The Republican chairman called the proceedings to order to consider the nomination of Lieutenant Colonel Gabbard. Tulsi delivered an opening statement that was characteristically concise and direct. She stood with evident military discipline and thanked the committee for the opportunity to be heard. She mentioned her deployment to Iraq and her decades holding top-secret security clearances. She asserted her understanding of how intelligence is used and how it has been abused in the past. Her commitment was to end the political weaponization of these agencies against citizens. Schiff leaned into his microphone with the confident smile of a man used to controlling the narrative. He addressed her by rank with a slight tone of condescension regarding her past remarks. He claimed the American people deserved answers about her judgment concerning foreign leaders and sanctions. Tulsi interrupted him without raising her voice, stating they needed to discuss his judgment first. Schiff blinked in confusion as she clarified she meant his specific claims about Russia and the president. She opened the dossier in front of her, which contained official transcripts and video clips. She looked him in the eye and asked if he was currently under oath. The chairman nodded to confirm that all participants were subject to the penalty of perjury. Schiff realized his prepared talking points were useless if she was the one asking the questions. Tulsi produced printed transcripts and reminded him of his claims regarding collusion evidence. Her aide played a clip from March 2017, where Schiff claimed the case was more than circumstantial. Tulsi looked at him and repeated his assertion that direct evidence existed. She asked him simply if he remembered making that specific statement on national television. Schiff tried to argue that context was important, but she demanded a simple yes or no answer. After he reluctantly agreed, she produced another document from a different date. She quoted his claim from May 2017 that the evidence of collusion was clear. She continued with another quote from December, asserting he had seen direct proof. Schiff attempted to deflect by mentioning the Mueller report's documentation of contacts. Tulsi reminded him that the Mueller report explicitly found no conspiracy or coordination with the Russian government. She read the conclusion from the first volume and asked if he had read it. Schiff argued semantics, but she countered that he had used the specific word evidence. She insisted that he had told the public the proof was direct and clear. She demanded to know where that evidence was right now. Schiff stammered about looking at the totality of the situation, but she pressed for the physical evidence. The room fell silent as cameras zoomed in on his discomfort. He realized his usual deflection tactics would not work against a combat veteran with receipts. Schiff tried to suggest they were off track, but Tulsi corrected him immediately. She stated that since he questioned her fitness, his history of lying about intelligence was the central issue. She opened a much thicker folder containing classified transcripts from his own committee investigations. She noted that 53 witnesses testified under oath, and not one provided evidence of collusion. She accused him of going on television to claim he had proof despite knowing the truth. Schiff protested that her statement was inaccurate, but she promised to prove it with his own records. She declared that he had deliberately ignored the testimony while misleading the public. Schiff looked helplessly at his lawyer as his prepared questions sat uselessly on the table. Tulsi's aide played a compilation video showing Schiff on every major network making the same claim. From CNN to MSNBC, he repeatedly asserted that the evidence was ample and in plain sight. The video ended, leaving his own words hanging heavily in the air. For 3 years, he had utilized his status as chairman to convince Americans he held secret proof. Tulsi stated the simple fact that he had misled the country while holding the highest access to classified data. She asked him once again to produce the evidence he had claimed to possess. Schiff attempted to pivot by discussing contacts mentioned in the Mueller report. Tulsi countered that meetings do not constitute conspiracy or collusion. She reminded him that the FBI had used its full power and found no coordination. She asked if he had read the conclusion, finding no conspiracy, and he admitted he had. Tulsi then produced declassified transcripts from interviews conducted under his chairmanship. She read the testimony of Ambassador Volker, who stated he saw no evidence of conspiracy. She moved to the testimony of former CIA Director Brennan, who refused to characterize it as collusion. Former Director of National Intelligence Clapper also testified he never saw direct evidence. She quoted Samantha Power, who admitted she possessed no information regarding collusion from the intelligence community. Tulsi looked up and emphasized that dozens of witnesses testified to this in closed sessions. She accused him of knowing this truth while simultaneously lying to the public on cable news. Schiff's face reddened as he claimed he stood by his statements based on available information. Tulsi retorted that his statements were documented lies because the classified testimony proved otherwise. She held up the Mueller report and pointed out its clear exoneration regarding conspiracy. She then played another video from days after the report's release, where Schiff still claimed evidence existed. Tulsi asked why he continued the falsehood even after the investigation concluded. She cut through his explanation about broader context and produced the Durham report. She noted that the investigation was opened without appropriate predication or verified evidence. She told him he had lied repeatedly under oath for political purposes. The gallery murmured as the veteran stood her ground against the seasoned politician. Tulsi moved to the next topic, which was his defense of the FISA warrants. She produced a new folder containing heavily redacted official reports. She asked if he had reviewed the specific warrant application against Carter Page. She asked if he had publicly defended the FBI's handling of that warrant in a memo. Schiff shifted uncomfortably, claiming he merely provided context that Republicans omitted. Tulsi held up the Inspector General's report, which identified 17 significant errors. She noted that every single error and omission served to support the surveillance request. She asked why he called the warrant properly obtained when the report called it a failure. Schiff argued the IG found no documentary evidence of political bias in the decision-making. Tulsi countered that 17 errors, all favoring the target's surveillance, defied statistical odds. She turned the conversation to the Steele dossier, which served as the warrant's primary basis. She asserted it was unverified political opposition research paid for by the Clinton campaign. She projected a timeline showing the FBI knew the source had credibility issues. She revealed that the primary source told the FBI the information was merely bar talk and speculation. Despite this admission in January 2017, the FBI used the dossier for 3 subsequent renewals. Tulsi looked at Schiff and reminded him he had access to this briefing information. She produced his memo, where he claimed the FBI did not omit material information. She pointed out that he defended the dossier, even though he knew the source had undercut it. She compared his memo to the one released by Devin Nunes, which Schiff had called a distortion. The Inspector General's report eventually vindicated Nunes on every major point of contention. Everything Schiff had labeled as false turned out to be true according to the investigation. Tulsi accused him of lying to protect a fraudulent warrant used to spy on a campaign. She added that the FBI was specifically warned the dossier might be Russian disinformation. She highlighted the irony of him using Russian disinformation to investigate Russian interference. When asked if he apologized after the errors were proven, Schiff simply said he maintained his position. Tulsi moved on to his pattern of selectively leaking classified intelligence to the media. She produced redacted phone records showing clear patterns of communication. She reminded him that leaking classified information is a federal crime punishable by prison. She displayed a timeline showing a classified briefing followed immediately by a call to CNN. That same night, the network published a story citing officials familiar with the matter. Schiff claimed he could not control reporters, but she provided 47 distinct examples. In each case, a briefing was followed by his call and then a matching news story. The gallery went silent at the presentation of such specific evidence of systematic leaking. Tulsi presented a CIA damage assessment regarding unauthorized disclosures during his tenure as chairman. The document stated that human sources had to be relocated due to compromised information. She told him his leaks had endangered lives and damaged relationships with foreign allies. Schiff disputed the characterization, but she reminded him this was the assessment of career professionals. She then brought up the specific leak regarding Donald Trump Jr.'s emails. She demonstrated how his committee obtained the emails and leaked them to CNN before they could be released publicly. Schiff even appeared on television that night to discuss the confidential committee business. Tulsi termed this the weaponization of classified information for political damage. She also noted that he hid Ambassador Volker's testimony that contradicted his narrative for weeks. By the time the truth came out, the impeachment narrative was already established. She shifted the focus to the censorship of the Hunter Biden laptop story in October 2020. 5 days after the story broke, Schiff appeared on CNN calling it a smear from the Kremlin. He stated definitively that it was Russian disinformation without using any hedging language. Tulsi asked if he knew the FBI had already authenticated the laptop at that time. Schiff claimed he was expressing a professional opinion, but she cut him off. She expressed disbelief that the intelligence chairman was not briefed on such a significant counterintelligence issue. She pointed out that the letter from 51 intelligence officials appeared immediately after his TV appearance. She asked if he or his staff had coordinated the letter to give his lie credibility. Schiff refused to answer directly, which she took as a tacit admission. She noted that the signers have since admitted they never saw the evidence. She emphasized that while the letter admitted a lack of evidence, Schiff stated it was disinformation as fact. The FBI had verified the laptop, yet he used his authority to mislead the public. This lie helped censor a true story just weeks before a presidential election. She called it election interference carried out by an intelligence chairman. She asked if he was negligent or if he lied, demanding to know which it was. Tulsi opened a final folder regarding his use of committee power against his political rivals. She revealed that he had secretly subpoenaed the phone records of Devin Nunes, a sitting congressman. She explained that he used his power to spy on the colleague who was investigating his conduct. She also noted he had subpoenaed a journalist and the attorney for the president. Legal experts had condemned these actions as violations of the First Amendment and privilege. She reminded the room that the House of Representatives had formally censured him for his misconduct. Even members of his own party had joined the vote to reprimand him. The Speaker had removed him from the committee because he could not be trusted. She asked why he was now sitting on the Senate committee given this history. She then turned to the fabrications that drove his two impeachment efforts. She projected the actual transcript of the call between Trump and Zelensky to refute his claims. She played a video of Schiff reciting a fabricated version of the conversation during a hearing. Tulsi accused him of reading made-up dialogue into the congressional record as if it were fact. Schiff claimed it was parody, but she noted he only said that after being caught. His fabrication became the false narrative that millions of Americans believed. She addressed the second impeachment, noting how he edited the video of the January 6th speech. He had omitted the specific instruction to march peacefully and patriotically to the Capitol. Tulsi summarized the pattern of lying, leaking, and manipulating evidence across 6 different areas. She stated that this was not a resume for public service, but a record of corruption. She looked at him and asked the final crushing question. She contrasted his record with her own service and adherence to protecting secrets. She demanded to know if he had ever told the truth about anything she had asked. Schiff sat in silence, unable to answer yes or no without incriminating himself. Tulsi turned to the committee and asked why he was still permitted to hold a clearance. She declared that the American people could judge who was fit to serve. Tulsi gathered her files and walked out of the hearing room without looking back. The video of the confrontation went viral immediately, garnering millions of views within hours. The mainstream media struggled to defend Schiff, as the evidence was too specific and documented. Schiff's approval ratings plummeted, and he faced ethics complaints and challengers. The Senate confirmed Tulsi Gabbard as the Director of National Intelligence in a close vote. Tulsi was sworn in at CIA headquarters, promising to end the political weaponization of intelligence. Meanwhile, Schiff appeared on cable news looking defensive and diminished as he made excuses. The contrast between the new director and the discredited politician was stark. The warrior had defeated the politician using his own words and undeniable evidence. The story concluded with a call to demand accountability and support those who tell the truth.